When you chose to follow God, did you expect life to get easier? Many people do. They expect less pain, less stress, less confusion. But then obedience leads to loss. Prayer leads to silence. Doing the right thing makes life harder, not better. And that gap hurts. Today I want to talk about why following God does not always make life easier, and why that does not mean your faith is broken. Let me start with a question. Have you ever felt disappointed with God? Not because you stopped believing, but because life did not improve the way you thought it would. If you have felt that, you are not alone. The Bible talks about this honestly. Not in slogans, not in promises of quick relief, but in real stories. One of the clearest places we see this is in the words of Jesus himself. In Matthew chapter 16, Jesus says this, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." That verse is short, but it is heavy. Jesus does not say, "Follow me and things will smooth out." He does not say, "Follow me and you will finally feel comfortable." He says, "Take up your cross." A cross was not a symbol of hope in that culture. It was a symbol of suffering, of loss, of death. So from the very beginning, Jesus was honest. Following him would cost something. Now let's slow down and look at why this matters. Many people today are disillusioned with faith, not because they hate God, but because they were told a story that the Bible never promised. They were told that obedience leads to ease, that faith leads to comfort, that prayer fixes circumstances. So when life stays hard or gets harder, they feel misled. They start asking questions like, "Did I do something wrong? Is my faith weak? Did God forget me?" Those questions can quietly eat away at trust. But Scripture gives us a different framework. Let's look at another example. In Acts chapter 9, Paul encounters Jesus and gives his life fully to God. You would expect that moment to mark the start of a smooth path. But almost immediately, Paul's life becomes more dangerous. He faces rejection, imprisonment, beatings, isolation. At one point, Paul lists the things he has endured: hunger, sleepless nights, persecution, and fear. This is a man who obeyed God deeply, and his life did not get easier. So what is going on? Here is the key idea. Following God does not mean fewer struggles. It often means different struggles. Struggles that shape you instead of shielding you. We need to separate two things that often get confused. Comfort and faith are not the same thing. The Bible never defines faith as feeling safe or settled. Faith is trust in the middle of uncertainty. That is why Hebrews chapter 11 is so honest. It lists people who trusted God, and many of them did not receive what they hoped for in this life. Some were rescued, some were not. Yet they are all called faithful. That should change how we read our own lives. If your faith has not removed your anxiety, that does not mean it has failed. If obedience has cost you relationships, status, or ease, that does not mean you misheard God. Sometimes obedience removes false supports so that trust can grow deeper. That is uncomfortable, but it is purposeful. Let's bring this into modern life. Think about the pressure to perform, succeed, and appear strong. Faith is often presented as a solution that makes you feel powerful. But Jesus often works in the opposite direction. He invites weakness. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, Paul says that he asked God to remove something painful from his life. God's answer was not removal. God said, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." That is not the answer most people want, but it reveals something important. God is not always trying to make life easier. He is trying to make you whole. Easier is temporary. Whole is lasting. This helps explain why faith can feel disorienting at times. You are being reshaped, not just soothed. Now let me ask you something. When life became harder after you chose to follow God, what did you assume that meant? Did you assume God was disappointed with you? Did you assume you took a wrong turn? Or did you assume that growth always looks gentle? Scripture challenges that assumption. Look at the life of Jesus. Perfect obedience, perfect trust, and yet suffering. Not because God abandoned him, but because obedience placed him in conflict with broken systems, false power, and fear. When you follow God, you often step against currents that once carried you along. That creates friction, and friction hurts. But it also reveals direction. Another passage that helps here is James chapter 1. It says, "Consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." James is not telling people to enjoy pain. He is telling them that pain is not meaningless. Testing produces something. Not comfort, strength. Not ease, endurance. This matters because many people leave faith quietly, not loudly. They do not reject God. They simply stop expecting Him to meet them in pain. They stop bringing questions. They stop praying honestly. And over time, faith becomes distant. But the Bible invites something else. It invites wrestling. It invites lament. It invites truth. Look at the Psalms. David follows God deeply, and yet he says things like, "How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever?" That is not a lack of faith. That is faith speaking honestly. God does not ask for pretending. He asks for presence. So if following God has made your life harder, here is what I want you to hear. You are not broken. Your faith is not fake. And God has not misled you. You may be in a season where trust is being deepened, not rewarded yet. That does not mean reward will never come. But it does mean timing matters. Growth often looks like loss before it looks like gain. Let me ask you another question. If God's goal was not to make your life easier, but to make you more grounded, more honest, and more free, would you still want to follow Him? That is a hard question, but it is an honest one. Faith that only works when life works is fragile. Faith that survives disappointment is strong. If this resonates with you, take a moment and reflect. Where has obedience cost you something? Where have you expected relief, but received resistance instead? You can share that in the comments if you want. You never know who needs to hear that they are not alone. And if this kind of honest, grounded look at Scripture helps you, consider subscribing. Not because everything will get easier, but because faith grows best when it is explored together. Let me close with this. Following God does not remove struggle, but it does give struggle meaning. It does not erase pain, but it gives pain direction. And it does not promise ease, but it promises presence. And sometimes, presence is the very thing that carries you through what ease never could. If you are still walking, even with questions, you are doing better than you think. You are not failing God. You are learning to trust Him in real life. And that kind of faith lasts.